sure that they will. What's disturbing to us is that experts are telling us that Russian state actors broke into the DNC, stole these emails, and other experts are now saying that the Russians are releasing these emails for the purpose of actually helping Donald Trump.
You're basically suggesting that Russians hacked into the DNC and now are releasing these files through WikiLeaks to help elect Donald Trump.
Well, this isn't my assertion. There are a number of experts that are asserting this. I think we need to get to the bottom of these facts, but that is what experts are telling us. Experts have said that it is the Russians that in fact went in and took these emails, and then if they are the ones who took them, we have to infer that they are the ones then releasing them.
Your social media feed may have been part of Russia's interference in the election. The FBI's counterintelligence division investigating whether some news sites like Breitbart benefited from or colluded with Russian operatives during the campaign.
The CIA says Russia did interfere in the 2016 election to help President-elect Donald Trump win the White House.
No, Russia did not help me get elected. You know who got me elected? You know who got me elected? I got me elected. Russia didn't help me at all.
Mueller's also preparing to accelerate, that's the word, his probe into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin, which is really the heart of the matter here.
It's one thing to believe the worst about your political opponents. It's another to believe the worst about them and only find out later you were duped by a foreign campaign to distort the election.
Russia's interfering in the election with the hope of getting the President Trump reelected.
The intelligence community releases an assessment that Russia interfered in our elections or is trying to do so again.
Surprise is that Vladimir Putin is once again working to try to help Donald Trump get reelected as president.
Russia is once again meddling in the election in order to help Donald Trump.
Russia is actively working to get the president reelected.
Russia nonsense. All scams.
In a tweet, the president called this another misinformation campaign by the Democrats.
Russians are trying to interfere with the 2020 election.
This was all about Russia. They don't talk about Russia anymore because it turned out to be a hoax. It was all a hoax.
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has described the recent presidential elections as the most secure in the history of the country.
Christopher Krebs, who was the country's top cybersecurity official on Election Day, told a Senate panel this presidential election was the most secure in U.S. history.
Folks in charge of election security, they released a statement calling the November 3rd election the most secure in American history. That is a quote.
The nation's election agencies, along with nearly a dozen federal officials, have expressed the utmost confidence in the security and integrity of the elections.
While the president continues to tweet unproven claims of widespread voter fraud, the cybersecurity division of his Department of Homeland Security has just declared this election, quote, the most secure in American history, end quote. President Trump on Twitter today accepting credit for running a secure election while also accusing Democrats of rigging it.
They cheated and they rigged our presidential election.
But the fraud happened. The election in many ways was stolen, and the only way it'll be fixed is by, in the future, reinforcing the laws.
U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin says the 2020 election was probably the most secure election in U.S. history, citing the Department of Homeland Security.
Christopher Krebs, the cybersecurity director who oversaw the election, made that declaration and was later fired by President Trump.
But I think his job was keeping the foreigners out of the election. It was the most secure election based on security of the internet and technology. But he never has voiced an opinion, he's welcome to today, on whether or not dead people voted. I don't think he examined that. Did he examine non-citizens voting? So to say it was the safest election, sure, I agree with your statement if you're referring to foreign intervention. But if you're saying it's the safest election based on no dead people voted, no non-citizens voted, no people broke the absentee rules, I think that's false. And I think that's what's upset a lot of people on our side, is that they're taking your statement to mean, oh, well, there was no problem in the elections. I don't think you examined any of the problems that we've heard here. So really, you're just referring to something differently is the way I look at it.
Plus,
two cybersecurity committees within the Department of Homeland Security released a statement November 12 calling the November 3rd election, quote, the most secure in American history.
By the way, Senator Paul earlier talked about the fact that there has been some lack of understanding between what you testified to and what you stated as to the election being secure from cyber attacks, and this notion that there were not instances of irregularity and fraud in this election, which of course there have been in every election in the history of our country, and there were in this election, and we've heard about some of those today. Is Senator Paul correct? Is that what your report was about? Is he accurate in saying that?
The focus of the statement, the joint statement, was security. It was secure. I think terms have been conflated here, alleging that we were speaking to the fraud aspect. We absolutely were not. We were talking about security, hacking, manipulation of these machines. That was the thrust of the statement.
Here's a part of his testimony with the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee.
The 2020 election was the most secure in U.S. history.
Calling the November 3rd election, quote, the most secure in American history.
PolitiFact Wisconsin rated this claim true.
I think terms have been conflated here, alleging that we were speaking to the fraud aspect. We absolutely were not. We were talking about security, hacking, manipulation of these machines. That was the thrust of the statement.
Rated this claim true.
What's really troubling, disappointing, but also, again, not surprising, is how many people like Mitch McConnell and Secretary Pompeo and others are going along with this charade, which merely drags us down in the estimation of the world.
Because it was a false accusation, a totally false accusation, and it's a disgrace, and it's a very sad period for this country. And I think in the end, I will consider what's happening now to be one of my greatest achievements, exposing this corruption.